Hello everyone, and welcome to my Danjin guide. Danjin is a cute and scary hybrid Havoc unit that can fill both the sub and main DPS role. Her sub DPS potential skyrockets when you get her 6th resonance, and her main DPS ideally wants her R2. Before we look at Danjin's kit, make sure to like and subscribe if you like this guide, it really helps out. Before we look at Danjin's kit, you have to know these two combos that make up her gameplay. First combo, you use basic attack twice and you skill twice after you use your 2 basic attacks to create a mark on the enemies that makes Danjin deal more damage. And for your second combo, which does more damage, you basic attack 3 times and you skill 3 times after that to fill up your Forte bar and deal significantly more damage. Make sure to use your first combo first and your second combo second to gain the maximum damage output from Danjin. There's also a unique mechanism with her basic attacks, skill, and dodge counter. After you successfully dodge counter, you can cast your skill again to cast Crimson Erosion. Crimson Erosion is basically her upswing with the sword, which means you dodge counter perfectly or you fucked up your combo. Her skill has no cooldown and is the only thing that gives you Ruby Blossom stacks, needs certain combos to work properly and deal damage. She loses HP every time you use her skill and can replenish it by using the Forte bar above your health, which deals damage and heals her. Onto her Forte circuit. After you accumulate around 60 Ruby Blossom, or around half of the bar, if you hold your basic attack, you consume all Ruby Blossom to cast Chaos Cleave that heals Danjin and is considered heavy attack damage. If you fully max out your bar and you gain 120 Ruby Blossom, you can cast Chaos Cleave and Scatter Bloom that both deal increased damage. Chaos Cleave is the bunch of attacks in the air that happen, and Scatter Bloom allows Danjin to deal a significant amount of damage, slashing her 2 blades in the enemy. Her ult might have a lot of cool words, but it's just a small nuke. Her outro skill basically screams, "Havoc Rover, please have me in your team," because she gives Havoc damage bonus by 23% for 14 seconds. For her first inherent skill, Crimson Erosion triggered by counter dodging gives that attack a 20% damage boost, and her second passive enables Ruby Blossom to gain twice the stacks, but you lose twice the health. This is a good damage upgrade, but this makes her riskier to play since she loses more HP. And her second inherent skill gives you a 30% heavy attack damage bonus for 5 seconds after you cast Sanguine Pulse. Sanguine Pulse is the 3 skill uses in your second combo where you basic attack 3 times and skill 3 times after that. For her Forte Priority, go with her Forte circuit first, followed by your Resonance skill, Resonance Liberation, and finally basic attacks. You can skip the intro, it doesn't affect her damage that much, so you're safe without it. As a sword user, her best is obviously Emerald of Genesis for now, since it offers everything. Second is Command of Conviction, for how good and simple it is to get 100% out of this weapon. Sword 18 makes a surprisingly good weapon for her, coming in at 3rd place, but you need to be under 40% health to get a lot of your damage. And lastly, as the most free to play of all, Sword of Night is your last option. For her best echo sets, there is only one and no exceptions. The 5-piece Sun Sinking Eclipse, the most badass echo set I've ever heard, is the best in slot as usual, with the Dreamless as your main echo. And Dreamless is used in both sub and main DPS. Unless you want to make your Danjin a full-on support for your main DPS, you go with Moonlit Clouds and the Heron as your main echo. For substats, you want crit rate, then attack, heavy attack damage bonus, and resonance skill are both on equal footing. And lastly, you want basic attack damage. And for main stats, you want crit rate on your cost 4, havoc damage bonus on your cost 3s, and attack percent on your cost 1 echoes. I mentioned at the start of the video that you need at least R2 to have a decent Danjin, and this is the case for both sub and main DPS. They both need R2 to perform at least on a much better level. But if you're going to run her as a main DPS or spend more field time on her, then any, and I mean any resonance is good, since they all offer what Danjin wants while on field. I'll explain from her R3 onwards. Her R3 makes her ult do more damage. Her R4 gives her 15 crit rate if you have half of your Forte bar filled, and this crit rate applies to Scatter Bloom also. Her R5 gives 15 havoc damage bonus and 15 more if you are below 60% HP, and her R6 gives your team a 20% attack bonus for 20 seconds after you use Chaos Cleave. Onto the team section. Her best teams for sub DPS is only the Havoc Rover team for now, and for main DPS you can use Sanhua, Taochi, or Mordefi as your sub DPS. All work perfectly, but the strongest support in my opinion is Taochi, followed by Sanhua. For Danjin's rotations, I will be using footage from witheringwaves.gg since my Danjin is currently level 30 and they showcase it a little better than I can. Again, this footage is not mine, it is witheringwaves.gg and all credit goes to them, and make sure to check them out. And to recap, Danjin is a great sub and main DPS unit. She has two combos that you need to know how to play her perfectly. Her Forte Priority is Forte Circuit, Resonance Skill, Resonance Liberation, and basic attacks, with the intro being skippable. Her best weapons are the Emerald of Genesis, followed by Commando of Conviction, Sword 18, and Sword of Night. Sun Sinking Eclipse is her best in slot echo set with Dreamless as your main echo. For substats, you'll want crit rate, attack percent, heavy attack damage bonus, or skill damage bonus are both the same, and lastly basic attack damage. As for main stats, you want crit rate on your cost 4, havoc damage bonus on your cost 3s, and attack percent on your cost 1 echoes. Her second resonance is a must-have for Danjin to get 100% out of her, with the other resonances providing useful buffs to her personal damage. And lastly, her best teams are the Havoc Rover team for sub DPS, and for Danjin as a main DPS, Taochi works best for her as a support, with Sanhua behind and Mordefi generally being a good sub DPS / support. Thank you for watching, make sure to like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you on the next guide.